Yo, what's good, YouTube? It's Stories of Yonko back here with another video. And before I get into this video, I'm on y'all neck. I'm on y'all helmet. Because y'all asked me for higher quality videos. And then when I finally produce a higher quality video, y'all don't watch it. Look at my Kyrie Irving video. Y'all let that video die. You feel me? Like, no love at all. You feel me? It's like me on Valentine's Day. And some of you on Valentine's Day. No play whatsoever. But pretty much, it is what it is. I ain't mad. That's what happens when you're a smaller content creator. You try to run before you can walk and, before you can pretty much crawl too. But basically, this channel is small. It's not at the level yet to where I can produce higher quality videos and they'll get views. And it'll pretty much be worth my time and y'all time once this channel gets big enough to where, we start going all in on the production and the time, and it'll be worth it. But you guys see, I haven't been uploading or anything like that because I was working on that video, and it's not worth the time to put effort into a video that it's not going to do well. So we're going to go back to the voiceovers, but the difference is I will be making my own thumbnails moving forward. I will no longer be using Google Images or Yahoo or anything like that, because I noticed some of the content creators y'all watch, they use the same type of style of content creation, voiceovers and stuff. They steal my thumbnails once they start to see the videos do well. Like, oh, they saw the Russell Westbrook video, so guess what? They stole the thumbnail for that shit too. And it was like, oh, maybe I can get some views off it. Your niggas are leeches. But basically, I'm gonna use my own thumbnails moving forward. So if you see these niggas use it, they stole it. But pretty much, it is what it is. Let's get into the video, all right? Russell Westbrook, James Harden, all-time rankings, legacies, conversations, discourse. Where would these players rank all-time if they got a championship with the Clippers? Now, I'm of the opinion that championship rings way different at different points in careers, right? Dirk's tends to weigh a lot because Dirk went through hell throughout his career. They called him a choker, all this stuff, right? But then when he got that 2011 ring over a super team now, niggas speak about that Dirk ring like, oh my God. Like, when I say, like, they say that's one of the hardest rings in NBA history. They bring up Hakeem's ring. They bring up, tough rings that were won. And pretty much, if these guys win, we got to have conversations, uncomfortable conversations surrounding old heads, young niggas, and niggas like me. So pretty much, where would I rank a Russell Westbrook if he won a championship? We got to start having those Bob Cousy conversations, Jason Kidd, Chris Paul. You feel me? We got to start having those conversations. He's never going to be top 5 because he's not touching Isaiah Thomas. Damn near nobody's touching that nigga. And, he's not touching Jerry West. He's not touching Steph Curry. He's not touching Oscar Robertson. He's not touching Magic Johnson. He's not touching those players. But anything outside of the top 5, we'll have a conversation about, because Russell Westbrook just hit the milestone of 25,000 points, 9,000 assists, and 8,000 rebounds. Very few players have done that. But Russell Westbrook, he accomplished that. So he's having the stats. But what does it mean to win a championship ring as a sixth man? Ask yourself that. What does it mean? We cannot give credit to a Gary Payton anymore for what he did in Miami. That ring was pretty much, it was worthless, honestly, to his legacy. If we're being real, it really didn't mean nothing. He was at the tail end of it. Neither James Harden or Russell Westbrook are washed. Neither one of these players are washed. Russell Westbrook could be a sixth man of the year. James Harden, yes, he's a third option, but at the same time, he's still playing at an all-time level. But for Russell Westbrook, in my opinion, he leapfrogs Gary Payton. If you want to respect the Bob Cousy segregation rings, cool, whatever, no disrespect. But if you want to have conversations surrounding him and Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Chris Paul, he stays within that range. You feel me? If he wins a championship. Right now, I have him over Gary Payton, but it's like some people will still have Steve Nash over him if he won a championship. Some people have Jason Kidd over him if he won a championship. Understandably so, because him and Jason Kidd would kind of be in the same box, right? But Jason Kidd doesn't have the same stats that a Russell Westbrook would have, so he edges him out. Then we gotta move on to Steve Nash, 2-time MVP. Been to the NBA Finals, but, didn't win shit. So it's like, hey, it's crazy. But Steve Nash is one of the most unique players in NBA history because it's like, for him, it's a lot of mystique surrounding his career. Because in the early 2000s, you had a lot of guys playing the same type of way. And then, you had the Mike D'Antoni Suns, and they brought a different style, which a lot of teams have adopted that style, 7 seconds or less. But basically, what I'm starting to realize when we talk about players like Russell Westbrook, social media is always either going to inflate or discourage certain people's legacies. They're never going to be talked about in a serious way. People call him Russell Westbrook and, he stopped LeBron from winning a championship. But in reality, bro, LeBron still ain't going to win shit. So Russell Westbrook, he's going to stay between that 6 to 11 range. It just depends on who you want to, I guess, put him up against, compare the careers, compare the stats, longevity, no longevity, which you want to talk about. But for James Harden, it is very clear, if you do not already have him over Allen Iverson, he is going to be ranked over Allen Iverson. If you have them tied, him winning a championship as a third option edges him out completely. He's never going to be in top 3 conversations. He's never going to be over D-Wade. He's never going to be over Kobe. Never going to be over MJ, of course. But when we talk about guys like George Gervin, Clyde Drexler, you can have that conversation. But don't mention no motherfucking Reggie Miller, Vince Carter. Don't mention them niggas, because you're being disingenuous at that point. Niggas will really take Reggie Miller over James Harden. Are you out your damn mind? Plain and simple. It is what it is. But if you want to say Clyde Drexler is over him, there's a case for that in terms of you want to talk about first option and accomplishments as a first option. But, Clyde Drexler wasn't going up against the fucking Golden State Warriors. So, yeah, pretty much that happened, right? And I think the Houston Rockets would have beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2018, me personally. But listen, James Harden, the conversation is going to be between him and Allen Iverson. And a lot of old heads are not going to be comfortable with that conversation because, Allen Iverson is kind of like a nostalgia piece of pretty much their time and what they grew up watching. I'm not a big fan of Allen Iverson. I'm going to be real with y'all. I am not a fan of him whatsoever. But I respect his game, just like how I respect Damian Lillard. But, I add context to those players' careers. But with James Harden, he's going to rank over Allen Iverson. And that's going to be the discourse that's surrounding a lot of controversy in terms of people talking, old heads, young heads. People already have him over him. If I want to be genuine and say they're tied because Allen Iverson got a team to the finals, but at the same time, James Harden, he was going up against tougher competition and he put up better stats and he had a better prime. But if he wins a championship as a third option, he will edge him out because, yes, Allen Iverson, he had an opportunity to win with other players and it didn't happen. But listen, we're going to talk about these players in a vacuum because people are going to lose the context of these guys are not in their prime anymore, but they're not washed. James Harden, we never thought of him as anything less than a second option. Russell Westbrook, we never thought of him anything less than a third option. So to see both of them in completely different roles outside of the context throughout their entire career, Russell Westbrook, we see him as a first option, wasn't the best. Second option, wasn't the best. Third option, you feel me? It was not the most ideal circumstance with the Lakers. I'm going to give him that. But, we don't know. We probably won't ever know. But he's a sixth man now. He's excelling in that role. James Harden, we've seen him as a first option. Didn't work out, but he did go against tough competition. Second option, he excelled in that bitch, but certain circumstances, with Kyrie and, injuries with the Brooklyn Nets, if you want to swap him out with Kyrie, second, third, either way, it was interchangeable, contrary to what people believe it was. But second option with the 76ers, not the best pairing. But basically, these guys have been in multiple roles, and we have to give them the same grace that we give other guys when they win a ring, because we got to give Russell Westbrook the same grace as a Jason Kidd. We have to. We have to give him the same grace. So when you talk about his stats, along with getting that ring as a sixth man, as an impactful sixth man, not just some scrub off the bench that has to fill, I guess the roster out. We're talking about a legit sixth man of the year candidate, playing at a high level, a guy that could start for some teams, not maybe championship caliber teams, but for teams that are right in the middle of the pack. If he came with a Brooklyn, he'll probably be starting for Brooklyn, right? But listen, these guys are going to put some people in uncomfortable conversations surrounding Allen Iverson, surrounding, Bob Cousy, Gary Payton, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, if they win a ring. It is very clear what it does for Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. It skyrockets them niggas. But for these two particular players, I had a conversation with my friend. What does it mean for their legacies if they won a ring with the LA Clippers? Now, is it going to be a little razzle-dazzle, drizzle all over, little parsley, you feel me, put over it, because they won it with the Clippers and got that franchise their first championship and probably their only championship for a while. You feel me? Will it mean the same thing? Because keep in mind, this is a fucking super team. Keep in mind. But I think that's going to get lost in terms of context because of the simple fact that the Clippers have come up small many times, that the Clippers have never gotten over the hump. I think that it's going to finally be like, oh, okay, like they make it to the NBA Finals and then they win. And then people are just going to look at that. They're not going to look at, all the failures, the hitting the side of the backboard, playoff P, even though Paul George is a way better playoff performer than people give him credit for. But once you're memed, you're memed. But listen, these two players winning a championship with the Clippers means a lot for the organization. It means a lot for them as far as careers to edge out certain players, because that's really what I'm talking about. Who will they edge out to get a certain positioning, right? And don't let them win two. Well, it doesn't really help James Harden. I ain't going to hold you, because that 06 ring for D-Wade, that shit is solidified. So, ain't nothing he can really do about that. James Harden is locked in at 4. And Russell Westbrook, he's pretty much locked outside of the top 5. He's not going to leapfrog Isaiah Thomas. He's not going to leapfrog Steph Curry, Oscar Robertson, Magic Johnson. He's not going to get into that conversation. But it pretty much bolsters their legacies for any guys to come after them. We don't know what Luka Doncic is going to be. We don't know what, I guess, guys like Tyrese Halliburton, De'Aaron Fox. We don't know what these guys are going to be like 10 years down the road, where we say, okay, their careers are over with. How many championships did they win? What are their stats? How many MVPs, finals MVPs, right? So pretty much these guys, that being Russell Westbrook and James Harden, their legacies are pretty much being cemented for the guys that come behind them. They're pretty much trying to build their cases for being at a certain spot before these young guys, and wherever the game evolves to by the time that we're in our mid 30s or 40s, these guys are going to be shattering records, man. Plain and simple. Nigga, they might have a 4-point line in that bitch. So these guys, they're going to come in behind them and they might win championships. They might win MVPs. They might win all this stuff, right? And then we're going to have conversations surrounding Russell Westbrook and James Harden all time compared to these newer guys. And then we're going to say, okay, this guy didn't get a ring, as a sixth man or as a second option. He got it as a first option. And then niggas are going to say, look, okay, we got to rank him over Russell Westbrook. That's what I'm saying. So we got to actually give context to what's going on right now. So years down the road, when we have these conversations surrounding the newer generation or whatever players are playing at that time, when they start winning rings at point guard and shooting guard, there's a guy that is going to be able to touch James Harden. There's going to be a guy that can touch Russell Westbrook. Maybe not the triple-double record, but in terms of overall just being a great point guard. And that's not to take away from James Harden or Russell Westbrook, but these younger guys, they're eventually going to start touching them, because the NBA is forever growing. It's always moving forward. And we can't, I guess, forget these guys at all. We're not, dude, if you forget about these guys, you're a clown. If you want to meme them and shit on them for the rest of their careers, you're a clown. I love the game of basketball. I love the players. Even the ones that I talk shit about, Damian Lillard, right? But basically, these guys, their legacies are going to be cemented, right? But that does not mean that the guys that come in behind them are going to be able to either leapfrog them or not leapfrog them. Because that's the thing that we do a lot. When we get players at a certain point, right, we start to think about nostalgia, you know, their careers, and like, there's no way that these new niggas can leapfrog this guy. Like, I'm not no fucking old head. You feel me? I'm 27 years old. You feel me? I watched the early 2000s, the 2010s, you know, the late 2010s, the 2020s. I'm around this bitch. You feel me? I'm not just stuck in one era. You know, when MJ was winning, I was a baby. So it is what it is. But I still give them their respect. But when these newer guys start to win, we are going to talk about Russell Westbrook. We're going to talk about James Harden and what they did for the LA Clippers. And when they won their rings, it was impactful to their legacies. See, all they can do is just leapfrog the guys that are ahead of them. In terms of James Harden, Allen Iverson, Russell Westbrook, Bob Cousy, Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Chris Paul. Those are the only guys that they can really leapfrog or try to get ahead of. But when these new niggas start to come in, bro, we're going to have to revisit this conversation. When they start to win multiple rings, 3 rings, 2 rings, they may not have the stats, but they got the legacy points. We're going to have to revisit what James Harden and Russell Westbrook did. So that's all I got to say. Peace.